Hello and welcome to Fireside Fairytales. If you've never been here before, my name is Rory and you are watching Varietal Literature's YouTube channel, a cozy little corner of the internet for narrative. And if you haven't been here before, you should know that there is a live chat right now that is growing a little crop of potatoes. And if you are watching this as a VOD later on, there will be timestamps down in the description below, and sometimes the comment as well, depending on if I've already agreed to put something there, that will jump you ahead to the beginning of the story. And there is only one story that we are having tonight, and that story is Koshchei the Deathless. Because that is the namesake character that we've been talking about. We started this conversation last week, and wrapping it up is the wrong turn of phrase here. Basically, I would have liked for this to be one stream, this last week and this week, but the stories were too long, so I had to split them up. This story is about as long as last week's, and last week's took an hour. So why are we talking about him? Well, partially just to read about folklore, but also we are talking about it because he is, I think, generally agreed upon to be the origin of, or at least the inspiration for D&D's Lich. Now, I put a bunch of caveats on that in my introduction last week, and I won't repeat it here because I imagine a lot of people saw that one and don't need it repeated. But basically, he embodies a couple of features. He's a villain of folklore who comes up. He has this trait that something about his ability to die has been exported outside of himself. Now, in D&D terms, we call that a phylactery, although I'd learned this week, apparently they dropped that term. But but a phylactery where they store their soul is the story there. But in the context of Koshchei, there's a wide variety of ways that he is deathless. We're going to look at a story today, though, that does wrap around the idea of that kind of phylactery, of it being outside of himself. Pardon me. However, I should note that there are other stories. Maybe at some point I will read them, including one where I heard about this week, where Koshchei has a horse so fast he can outrun death, and that's why he's deathless. Which would line up with last week, because he had this supernaturally fast horse last week. But either way, we're going to read an epic length, I suppose, for folklore anyways. The story about Koshchei the Deathless, a figment of Russian folklore, who is, as the name says, deathless. But let me say hello to the chat, and then we'll get to it. I see that Uncle Kitty is here, GS Hira, dropping in to let us know that Tammy will be listening, but not in the chat. Hello, Tammy. I see Lizzie Rose says, hello, happy Easter. I hope you had a good Easter. I got to see my mother. She brought me gluten-free snacks, which were great. Jumpstore also says happy Easter. She says that she made cinnamon rolls that I infused with pastry cream. Oh, wow. Baked with heavy whipping cream. My God. Lizzie Rose says, hope you had a great birthday, Rory. I don't know. You get to be an old man. I don't know if I really had one. Jumpstore said... certainly were. Oh, the cinnamon buns asked why they all ate them, and my brother pointed out that we're not supposed to have wheat in the house on Passover, and I said that's why I made the cinnamon rolls. I see. Is that a thing? And he said that's why I ate them. I've heard some of the restrictions of Passover. I didn't know wheat was a part of that. Oh, I mean, that would make sense, Lizzie Rose. As well. Uncle Kitty says, I think the first time I saw the term lich was in Clark Ashton Smith's Tales of Averoigne. Also, hello, Mr. Kittenbelt. I was reading a bit on the history of it in D&D, at least. It seems like the mid-'80s is when the sort of D&D concept of it coagulates a bit. But it isn't as an established history as it would seem. I'm rambling. I won't go into this right now. Nobody tuned in to hear the history of D&D, but the only thing I'll say is if you ever read Vecna Lives, which is kind of the iconic introduction of liches to the canon, which picks up on a magic item called the Hand and Eye of Vecna that was just a random... It was just that. It had no backstory. It was built by one of the contractors for Gary Gygax. But if you read that one, he is deathless. Vecna's kind of the iconic lich of that era, and really all eras. There are more liches than Vecna, but Vecna's the most famous. Yeah, Vecna... in Vecna Lives, the module, there's no mention of a phylactery. He's just deathless. You just kind of accept that. Although Vecna is a bit weird because he is technically a god by that point. But this is not why anybody's here. So let me get to the story. I am baking some beans. So I have a time frame I need to fit in, and I need to not waste time because I need to get up and add water to them. Jumpstore says it's more about having things that count as leavened. Oh yes, that much I did know. True. Which obviously cinnamon rolls would be. Usually we store our bread and flour outside of the house, but I wanted to use up my flour instead. What a rebel. All right. Well, that's enough chit-chat from me. Let's get to the story. Just gonna mess with the sound level a bit there. Okay. Our first and only tale tonight is Koshchei the Deathless. Comes to us from Russian Fairy Tales, a choice collection of Muscovite folklore. I hope you enjoy. In a certain country, there once lived a king, and he had 3 sons, all of them grown up. Then the eldest son craved his father's blessing, that he might go and look for his mother. His father gave him his blessing, and he went off and disappeared, leaving no trace behind. The second son waited and waited. Then he too obtained his father's blessing, and he also disappeared. Then the youngest son, Prince Ivan, said to his father, "Father, give me a blessing, and let me go and look for my mother." But his father would not let him go, saying, "Your brothers are no more. If you likewise go away, I shall die of grief." "Not so, father, but if you bless me, and I shall go, and if you do not bless me, I shall go." So his father gave him his blessing. Prince Ivan went to choose a steed, but everyone that he laid his hand upon gave way under it. could not find a steed to suit him. So he wandered with drooping brow along the road and about the town, and suddenly there appeared an old woman who asked, "Why hangs so your brow so low, Prince Ivan?" "Be off, old crone," he replied. "If I put you on one of my hands and give it a slap with the other, there'll be a little wet left, that's all." Which is such a rude thing to say. The old woman ran down a by street, came to meet him a second time, and said, "Good day, Prince Ivan. Why hangs your brow so low?" And then he thought, why does this old woman ask me? Mightn't she be of use to me? And he replied, "Well, mother, because I cannot get myself a good steed." "Oh, silly fellow," she cried, "to suffer and not to ask the old woman's help. Come along with me." So she took him to a hill, showed him a certain spot, and said, "Dig up that piece of ground." Well, Prince Ivan dug it up and saw an iron plate and 12 padlocks on it. And he immediately broke off the padlocks, tore open a door, and followed a path leading underground. There, fastened with 12 chains, stood a heroic steed, which evidently heard the approaching steps of a rider worthy to mount it, and so began to neigh and to struggle until it broke all 12 of its chains. Then Prince Ivan put on armor fit for a hero, and bridled the horse, and saddled it with a Circassian saddle. And he gave the old woman money and said to her, "Forgive me, mother, and bless me." And then he mounted his steed and rode away. Long time did he ride. At last he came to a mountain, a tremendously high mountain, and so steep that it was utterly impossible to get up it. Presently, his brothers came that way. They all greeted each other and rode on together till they came to an iron rock, 150 poods in weight, and on it was the inscription, "Whosoever will fling this rock against the mountain, to him will a way be open." Well, the 2 elder brothers were unable to lift the rock, but Prince Ivan, at the first try, flung it against the mountain, and immediately there appeared a ladder leading up the mountainside. Well, Prince Ivan dismounted, let some drops of blood run from his little finger into a glass, gave it to his brothers, and said, "If the blood in this glass turns black, tarry here no longer. That will mean that I am about to die." Then he took leave of them and went his way. Hello, Witchery and Genera, good to see you too. He mounted the hill. What did he not see there? All sorts of trees were there, all sorts of fruits, all sorts of birds. Long did Prince Ivan walk on. At last he came to a house, a huge house, and in it lived a king's daughter who had been carried off by Koshchei the Deathless. Prince Ivan walked around the enclosure but could not see any doors. The king's daughter saw there was someone there, came on to the balcony and called out to him, "See, there's a chink in the enclosure. Touch it with your little finger, and it will become a door." What she said turned out to be true. Prince Ivan went into the house, and the maiden received him kindly, gave him to eat and to drink, and then began to question him. He told her how he had come to rescue his mother from Koshchei the Deathless. And then the maiden said, "It will be difficult for you to get at your mother, Prince Ivan. You see, Koshchei is not mortal. He will kill you. He often comes here to see me. There is his sword, 50 poods in weight. Can you lift it? If so, you may venture to go. Not only did Prince Ivan lift the sword, but he tossed it high in the air, and so he went on his way again. By and by he came to a second house. He knew now where to look for the door, and he entered in, and there was his mother. With tears did they embrace each other. Here also did he try his strength, heaving aloft a ball which weighed some 1,500 puds. The time came for Koshchei the Deathless to arrive, though. The mother hid away her son, and suddenly Koshchei the Deathless entered the house and cried out, "Foo, foo, a Russian bone." Which, for those who've watched the channel before, or listened to it anyways, will know that there's a thing where, like, treacherous, cursed creatures come in and they smell a Christian bone. Here it's a Russian bone, but it basically has the same intention.
One usedn't to hear with one's ears, or see with one's eyes, but now a Russian bone has come to the house. Who has been with you? Wasn't it your son?
What are you talking about? God bless you. You've been flying through Russia and got the air up your nostrils. That's why it's fancy here, answered Prince Ivan's mother, and then she drew nigh to Koshchei, addressed him in terms of affection, asked him about one thing and another, and at last said, "Whereabouts is your death, O Koshchei?"
My death, he replied, is in such a place. There stands an oak, and under the oak is a casket, and in the casket is a hare, and in the hare is a duck, and in the duck is an egg, and in the egg is my death.
It seems like a weird thing to complain about what is a very strange sentence from front to back. But the hare is in the duck? Or the duck is in the hare? What? There's a pregnant duck in a rabbit. The time, having thus spoken, Koshchei the Deathless tarried there a little longer and then flew away. The time came. Prince Ivan received his mother's blessing and went to look for Koshchei's death. He went on his way a long time without eating or drinking. At last he felt mortally hungry and thought, if only something would come my way. And suddenly there appeared a young wolf, and he determined to kill it. But out from a hole sprang the she-wolf and said,
"Don't hurt my little one. I will do you a good turn."
Very good. Prince Ivan let the young wolf go, and on he went and saw a crow. Stop a bit, he thought. Here I shall get a mouthful, and he loaded his gun and was going to shoot, but the crow exclaimed, "Don't hurt me. I'll do you a good turn." And Prince Ivan thought the matter over and spared the crow. And then he went farther. He came to a sea and stood still upon the shore. And at that moment a young pike suddenly jumped out of the water and fell on the strand. And he caught hold of it and thought, for he was half dead with hunger, "Now I shall have something to eat." And all of a sudden appeared a pike and said, "Don't hurt my little one, Prince Ivan. I'll do you a good turn." And so he spared the little pike also. But how was he to cross the sea? He sat down on the shore and meditated. But the pike knew quite well what he was thinking about, and laid herself right across the sea, and Prince Ivan walked along her back as if he were going over a bridge, and came to the oak where Koshchei's death was. And there he found the casket and opened it, and out jumped the hare and ran away. Oh, how was the hare to be stopped? Prince Ivan was terribly frightened at having let the hare escape, and he gave himself up to gloomy thoughts. But a wolf, the one he had refrained from killing, rushed after the hare and caught it and brought it to Prince Ivan, and with great delight he squeezed the hare, cut it open, and had such a fright, for out popped a duck that flew away, and he fired, and he fired again, but shot all on one side. And so again he gave himself up to his thoughts, and suddenly there appeared the crow with her little crows, and set off after the duck, and caught it, and brought it to Prince Ivan, and the prince was greatly pleased, and he got hold of the egg. Then he went on his way, but when he came to the sea, he began washing the egg and let it drop into the water. However was he to get it out of the water, in immeasurable depth? And again the prince gave himself up to dejection. And suddenly the sea became violently agitated. And the pike brought him the egg. Moreover, it stretched itself across the sea, and Prince Ivan walked along it to the other side, and then he set out again for his mother's. When he got there, they greeted each other lovingly, and then she hit him again as before. Well, presently in flew Koshchei the Deathless, and said,
Though no Russian bone can the ear hear, nor the eye see, but there's a smell of Russia here.
What are you talking about, Koshchei? There's no one with me, replied Prince Ivan's mother. And a second time spake Koshchei and said,
I feel rather unwell.
Then Prince Ivan began squeezing the egg, and thereupon Koshchei the Deathless bent double. At last Prince Ivan came out from his hiding place, held up the egg, and said, This is your death, O Koshchei the Deathless. And then Koshchei fell on his knees before him, saying,
Don't kill me, Prince Ivan. Let's be friends. All the world will lie at our feet.
But these words had no weight with Prince Ivan. He smashed the egg, and Koshchei the Deathless died. Ivan and his mother took all they wanted, started homewards on their way. They came to where the king's daughter was, whom Ivan had seen on his way, and they took her with them too. And they went further, and came to the hill where Ivan's brothers were still waiting for him. And then the maiden said, Prince Ivan, do go back to my house. I've forgotten a marriage robe, a diamond ring, and a pair of seamless shoes. Well, he consented to do so. But in the meantime he let his mother go down the ladder upon the side of the mountain, as well as the princess, whom it had been settled he was to marry when they got home, and they were received by his brothers, who then set to work and cut away the ladder, so that he himself would not be able to get down. And they used such threats to his mother and the princess that they made them promise not to tell about Prince Ivan when they got home. And after a time they reached their native country. Their father was delighted at seeing his wife and his 2 sons, but still he was grieved about the other one, Prince Ivan. But Prince Ivan returned to the home of his betrothed, and got the wedding dress, and the ring, and the seamless shoes. When he came back to the mountain and tossed the ring from one hand to the other, immediately there appeared 12 strong youths who said, I think one of my favorite things in the story is how stuff just happens like you're supposed to know. Well, you got the ring, so naturally, toss it between hands doesn't mend. Anyways, carrying on, you're like, wait, what? What are your commands? Carry me down from this hill. The youths immediately carried him down. Wait, okay. I'll read the rest of the story. But my impression of this mountain was that it was so sheer that he had to, like, magically summon a ladder to climb over it. But if 12 men can carry a man on their back and climb down it, is he just lazy? Is that the story? He just didn't want to hike a mountain? The youths immediately carried him down. Prince Ivan put the ring on his finger and they disappeared. Then he went on to his own country and arrived at the city in which his father and brothers lived. There he took up his quarters in the house of an old woman and asked her, "What news is there, mother, in your country?"
"What news, lad? You see, our queen was kept in prison by Koshchei the Deathless. Her 3 sons went to look for her, and 2 of them found her and came back, but the 3rd, whoa, Prince Ivan the 3rd, has disappeared, and no one knows where he is, perhaps dead. The king is very unhappy about him, and those 2 princes, and their mother brought a certain princess back with them, and so the eldest wants to marry her. But she declares he must fetch her betrothal ring first, or get one made just as she wants it. But although they have made a public proclamation about it, no one has been found to do it yet."
"Well, mother, go and tell the king that you will make one. I'll manage it for you," said the Prince Ivan. So the old woman immediately dressed herself and hastened to the king and said,
"Please, your majesty, I will make the wedding ring."
"Make it then. Make it, mother. Such people as you are welcome," said the king. "But if you don't make it, off goes your head." Such a king thing. The old woman was dreadfully frightened. She ran home and told Prince Ivan, random man that just wandered into her house and said he could make rings. Maybe ask some questions next time, ma'am, is all I'm saying. Told Prince Ivan to set to work at the ring, but Ivan laid down to sleep, troubling himself very little about it. The ring was there all the time, so he only laughed at the old woman, but she was trembling all over and crying and scolding him. "Well, of course! Why don't you just tell her you have the ring?" "As for you," she said, "you're out of the scrape, but you've done for me, fool that I was." The old woman cried and cried until she fell asleep. Early in the morning, Prince Ivan got up, awakened her, saying, "Get up, mother, and go out. Take them the ring. And mind, don't accept more than 1 ducat for it. If anyone asks who made the ring, you say you made it yourself. Don't say a word about me." Uncle Kitty says Ivan is a cruel little man. He sure is. Seems to be a bit of a trend with some of these Russian stories. The old woman was overjoyed and carried off the ring, and the bride was delighted with it. I feel like it's a probably a more accurate representation of how princes acted, though. I'll say that much. "Just what I wanted," she said. So they gave the old woman a dish full of gold, but she took only 1 ducat. "Why do you take so little?" said the king.
"What good would a lot do me, your majesty? If I want some more afterwards, you'll give it to me."
Having said that, the old woman went away. Time passed, and the news spread abroad. The bride had told her lover to fetch her wedding dress, or else get one made. Just such a one as she wanted. Well, the old woman, thanks to Prince Ivan's aid, succeeded in this matter too, and took her the wedding dress. And afterwards she took her the seamless shoes also, and would only accept 1 ducat each time, and always said that she had made the things herself. Well, the people heard that there would be a wedding at the palace on such and such a day, and the day they all anxiously awaited came at last. Then Prince Ivan said to the old woman, "Look here, mother, when the bride is just going to be married, let me know." And the old woman didn't let the time go by unheeded. Then Ivan immediately put on his princely raiment and went out of the house. "See, mother, this is what I'm really like," says he, and the old woman fell at his feet. "Pray forgive me for scolding you," said she. "Nah, man, don't suck up to him. He deserves scolding. He's being a jerk." Sorry, that's obviously not in the story. "God be with you," said he. Yeah, real Christ-like, Ivan. So he went into the church, and finding his brothers had not yet arrived, he stood up alongside the bride and got married to her. Then he and she were escorted back to the palace, and as they went along, the proper bridegroom, the eldest brother, met him. But when he saw that his bride and Prince Ivan were being escorted home together, he turned back again ignominiously. As to the king, he was delighted to see Prince Ivan again, and when he had learnt all about the treachery of his brothers, and after the wedding feast had been solemnized, he banished the 2 elder princes, but he made Ivan heir to the throne. It's a weird story. If you're like, that story never really did anything I expected it to do, yeah. Like, I've noticed that a lot of the heroes are pretty unlikable in this book, and it's hard to say if that's just the collection, that's the region, or whatever else, but yeah, there's just this through line of jerks. I see that the chat is largely agreed. Witchery says, a troublesome ring, hey? I think that's why Gandalf says, like, you know, magic rings are not to be trusted, because in folklore, a magic ring is usually more problems than help. But maybe not. In this case, it was helpful, but there's no explanation why. Witchery says, "I'm not sure I've ever heard of a good royal Ivan. Notably, there wasn't literally an Ivan the Terrible." Very true. Uncle Kizzy says this guy must be a relative. But we see there the reflected the same sort of tradition that, well, the tradition of the idea of a phylactery, right? The idea that you can remove whatever it is that is would preserve the core of your life. I think also something that's interesting that if you want to navel gaze about for a while is that what exactly preserves your life changes. Heart is a common one, but it's not only your heart. I don't know of any that are like a soul, though, which is how D&D frames it. Obviously, none of these things are called phylacteries. Phylactery as a word is an Athenian word, as I understand it, that basically just means like barricades or something to that effect. But it's also it's an alternate name for it starts with an F. An Orthodox Jewish item with the black scroll, the box with the scroll in it, which I think is partially why modern D&D doesn't really call them phylacteries anymore, because I mean, liches are generally villainous, so maybe it's a bad association. They might be right. To be honest, I've not really thought about it, so they've probably put more thought into it than me. But yeah, the concept there, though, that I'm invoking when I say phylactery in the Lich sense is the idea that something about you is removed from you and stored away from you so you cannot die. And we've seen a couple of examples, but surprisingly, this is Russian folklore. And the first time we encountered this was Norwegian folklore, which obviously isn't, the other side of the planet or anything, but it is quite separated in a lot of traditions. But we see the exact same end state as to where it's stored. In that case, it was a giant in the Norwegian tale, but it was also in a duck's egg. And he also, goes to the giant and is like, haha, I got you, and then he squeezes it and watches him die. But in that case, that duck's in a well in a church on an island in a lake. In this case, it's similar. He has to travel across water and stuff to get there. It is, related to a tree. But this idea of the hare with a duck inside of it that has an egg, and that's the thing. I think the reason why the hare is there is to justify the wolf, because I really cannot imagine how your brain would work towards a hare with a rabbit or a hare with a duck inside. Because hares are small, but I think they are ultimately smaller than ducks, so it's a weird relationship. Anyhow, I'm sure I'll find more Koshchei stories, and I will read more Koshchei stories as I find them, because it is an interesting one, this sort of historical villain with a fast horse, and for one reason or another is deathless. But these are two that were in the collection that we're reading, at least from Russian Tales right now, which is Russian Fairytales, a choice collection of Muscovite folklore. Yeah, by the way, I forgot to mention at the beginning, if you want to read this yourself, it is a free book you can find on Gutenberg in many different formats, because it is a very old book and it's in the public domain. Yeah. That is all I have to say on Koshchei. For now, I guess, would be what I would say there. I don't know what we're doing next week, but I'm sure it'll be something fun. I hope your weather has improved for folks who were having a cold and windy times. Thank you very much, GS Uncle Kitty, Witchery, Lizzie Rose. Ooh, there was a lot of people today. Janera, Hira, Tammy in the background, and Mr. Kittenpelt, all for dropping in and saying hello in the chat. And if you lurked, of course, that's great. If you're watching on the VOD, I hope it's comforting. I have received a few very kind comments in the last 3 months of the year. I don't know where I got hooked into some part of the algorithm, but at least a couple of people said that some of my streams are the ones they fall asleep to, and that's very sweet. I have my own versions of those. So yeah, I think it feels good to be somebody else's, I suppose. I mean, the only thing you can really offer in difficult times is comfort, I think, which is very much where folklore was told. Difficult times. Right. Uncle Kitty says thank you for the story. GS says thank you, Rory. These were really different. Yeah, they are very different, aren't they? It's the one nice thing about finding a good fat collection of a new area of folklore. There will be these fun connections you'll see. You'll be like, I've seen that sort of cycle before, but they always have their own thing, their own feel, their own vibe. That is always very unexpected. I suppose I should have anticipated the fact that Russian fairy tales, being a kind of tundra with a history of war, would be a rather harsh environment and therefore favor kind of harsh heroes, but I'm still a little surprised. Uncle Kitty says, thank you for the story, Rory. Jumpstore says it's always 4 now folklore figures, especially the infamous ones, always tend to pop up again eventually. Yes, even if not in name, basically in some other form. Thank you for the story, Rory. Everyone have a good night. Have a good night, sweet dreams all. Indeed. And while you folks do that, I will keep the fire going. You folks have yourself a good sleep.